Hi, I'm Strength and Conditioning Specialist Mike Mejia, and in this brief video, I'm going to show you the proper execution for all of the drills that I feature in part 1 of my series on off-season conditioning. Now remember, in this first phase, it's all about improving mobility and stability. So take your time and make sure to learn how to do all the drills properly so that you'll have the right foundation to progress for part 2 of this series to follow. So let's take a look at those drills right now. Our first drill to improve mobility is going to target the ankles, and it's called the low step knee drive. Now for this one, you can either use a book or 2x4, just something that's going to give you a really low step. As you can see, I'm using a book here. And what we're going to do is we're going to position the balls of the feet up on top of the book, making sure that the heels stay in contact with the ground. Now all you do from this position is simply drive the knees forward a bit. Again, it's very important to make sure that those heels maintain contact with the ground, and you just drive forward for a second or so, go back up to the starting position. Try to make each one a little bit bigger than the one before it. And as your ankle mobility improves, you can always use a slightly higher step or use a thicker book. But the goal here is to keep the upper body straight and tall and drive the knees forward, increasing mobility in that ankle joint. And that's the low step knee drive. Our next drill is going to allow us to address 2 different issues at once. And what we're going to do here is we're going to improve hip mobility with a high kneeling hip flexor dynamic stretch. And we're going to add some thoracic mobility into the mix by using this stick. Now for this one, I'm in a high kneeling position. And for that, I've got my left foot positioned about 2 feet in front of my right knee. Now to begin this stretch, what I want to do here is I'm going to contract my right glute as well as my abdominals on this side. I really want to put this right hip flexor and the top of the right quad under stretch. Now in a moment, I'm going to hold this position and start driving this left knee forward slightly, trying to make that drive a little bit bigger each time. It's very important that you keep that left heel in contact with the ground at all times. As I do that, I'm going to increase mobility in my thoracic spine on the left side. I'm going to cap the stick with my left hand. So as I drive the hip forward, I'm going to push the left arm up and back on a diagonal, increasing the mobility of the thoracic spine while once again holding on to that core neutral position and getting a nice stretch deep into that hip flexor on the right side as well as the top of the right quad. And that's the high kneeling hip flexor stretch with thoracic mobility, and you're going to want to remember to work both sides. Our next drill is aimed at increasing hip mobility, and it's called the leg raise. Now for this one, I'm going to lie down on my back, with my palms up and out to the sides. From here, what you're going to do is lift your leg up as if you're going to stretch your hamstring, and then allow it to drop over to one side. Now it doesn't necessarily have to touch the floor, but this will stretch the inner thigh on that side. And then in one motion, we're going to sweep it across as close to the hand as possible. Bring it back and around. Try to keep it a nice, smooth, fluid motion. Stretch that inner thigh on the left side. Take it across. Keep the hand in contact with the ground. As a matter of fact, you want to keep that back shoulder as close to the ground as possible. So open up and sweep over. I try to keep my right shoulder as close to the ground as possible. If it comes up a little, that's all right. But here we're really looking to keep this pelvis stable. We don't want this right side flipping up like so. We want to try to keep this down, get that stretch in that left groin rather, come across. And again, the big key here is just to keep this nice and fluid. And you may find that you're a little bit more flexible to one side than the other. So you'll need to work at these to make sure to improve that. And these are called leg raises. Our next strengthening drill is designed to increase strength in the upper back, a region that a lot of young athletes tend to avoid. And for this, I'm actually going to show you 2 different ways to do the drill. What we're going to do here is called an inverted row. And we're going to use a TRX suspension trainer first, and I'll also show you a different version in case you don't have one of these. But I really suggest picking one of these up because the TRX suspension trainer is something that you can use anytime, anywhere, with your own body weight as resistance. You can basically hook it up anywhere. I've got this one hooked up to a ceiling mount here, but you can hook it up over a fence or a tree to train outside. It's an incredibly versatile tool. And with this one, what we're going to do is I'm going to grab onto the handles. Now I can kind of control the difficulty level here because if I stay up high like this, it's fairly easy to do. If I want to make it more difficult and use more of my body weight, I'll walk my feet down. And from here, the motion is to pinch the shoulder blades together, drive the elbows back, and really engage that upper back. Even though the arms are working, you don't want to think of it as pulling with the arms. You want to start that pull by pinching those shoulder blades together, keep that chest out straight and tall, and control that descent on the way down.
holding the body in a nice rigid position on the way down, making sure the hips don't drop. Coming up and through, making sure you can hold for at least 1/1000 at the top. And again, if I started to fatigue and wanted to make it a little bit easier or continue the set, I would just bring my feet back a little bit further and continue the same motion. And that's the inverted row using the TRX, and now I'll show you another way to do it as well.
Okay, so realizing not everybody has the TRX handy, here's another way that you can do the drill. This is especially useful for those of you who train in a gym. You can easily do this in a squat rack using the bar and just setting the bar at a certain height. Now keep in mind, the lower you set the bar, the more difficult the drill is going to be. So here I have the bar set fairly low, about waist level. I'm going to grab it with a pronated or a palms facing forward grip. I'm going to get up onto my feet. Now the beginner's version would be to keep the knees bent here. And once again, emphasizing that pull by pinching the shoulder blades first. I'm going to pull up, bring the chest towards the bar, control on the way down, keeping that back nice and flat. Never want to come down and let the glutes drop down low. We want to stay in that bridge position. Now if I want to make the drill even more difficult, you balance just on the heels. And now I'm making it a little bit harder because I'm not getting as much support out of the lower body. Either way, no matter how you do it, it's a great exercise to really strengthen up that upper back. And that's called the inverted row. Our next drill is a real killer. It's called the Bulgarian split squat. And I urge any of you that are already doing barbell back squats to try this one first to see if you really have any deficiencies in terms of balance and unilateral or one-legged strength. Now for this one, you're going to need an exercise bench set up behind you about a couple of feet. I'm going to put my working leg, in this case my right, about 2.5 to 3 feet in front of the bench. How far you actually need to put your foot will be dependent on your height and leg length. Now here I'm going to reach back and place just the instep of my left foot on the bench. With an upright torso, I'm really going to look to bend this back knee as I descend down until the front leg is parallel to the ground, drive up and through. Now this takes a tremendous amount of flexibility in this back leg to be able to keep the torso upright like this and not get pulled forward. There's also a lot of stability required in the front leg. I'm working my glutes, my hamstrings, and again, really helping to increase mobility on this back leg. And this is an excellent drill to help not only with strength, but it'll help you with your speed as well. It's called the Bulgarian split squat, and you're going to want to remember to do both sides. Here's a great exercise to help improve both core and shoulder girdle stability, and it's called the windmill. Now you can also do these with a push-up, but for now we're just going to work on the beginner's version where we're trying to build a nice base of stability, and we're just going to do the actual windmill portion. So as you can see, I'm going to set up as if I'm going to do a push-up, and that setup is pretty important. I'm going to begin with my wrist directly beneath my shoulders in a nice core neutral position, which means no arching the lower back and no poking the butt up in the air. And my feet are about shoulders width apart, a little bit wider than a regular push-up. Now from here, with that core brace, I pick that chin up. We want to have the head hanging down. And in a nice controlled motion, I rotate out, switching my weight onto the balls of the feet, staring up at this hand, and keeping that left hip, as you can see, nice and high away from the ground. Coming over under control, and then doing the same thing to the other side. Packing the shoulders nice and tight. I've got my shoulder blades together here, coming over in a nice controlled motion. What you don't want to do is kind of throw the hips first and allow the hand to follow on this drill. Try to get everything leaving the ground at the same time. A lot of strength and stability in that shoulder girdle to hold this position. Try not to let your hips sag here. Keep them up nice and high. Bring that over. And same thing when we go to the other side. Shoulder blades pinched together, coming back over under control. And that's how you do the windmill. So there you have it. Short, sweet, and right to the point. And although they may not look like anything too fancy, I promise you that when done diligently a couple of times per week, these drills will get you moving and feeling a whole lot better. And they'll set you up perfectly for what's coming in part 2 of this program. And don't forget, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot me an email at mike@basesportsconditioning.com. I'll see you next time.